Ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha. Microtransactions have slowly become more and more prevalent over the course of the past few years. Starting with Dead Space 3 in 2013, we've seen the idea of microtransactions in the place of cheat codes make their insidiously slow creep into more and more games as time progresses. Yesterday, the community surrounding Two Worlds 2, an RPG published by Topware Interactive and Zux's Entertainment, and I can pretty much guarantee I butchered that name, was in an uproar over the game's implementation of a marketplace on the PC version of the game. Now, normally a marketplace would be no big deal if this were an online game or an MMO, but seeing a marketplace in a single-player game means only one thing: microtransactions, or more to the point, a new microtransaction system in a 7-year-old game. And yes, you heard correctly, Two Worlds 2 was released in November of 2010. And this week, the PC version of the game saw microtransactions added into it as a 7-year late afterthought by locking out console commands in a way to incentivize the microtransaction system. The console command is usually used by developers while debugging their games, and it has been used by gamers for decades to input cheat codes and make modifications to the game they are playing. Also, apparently the Xbox version of the game had microtransactions in it already, and the developers used this as an excuse as to why they were adding it in now for the PC version. Of course, as to be expected, the backlash over adding microtransactions into a 7-year-old game was severe. The already mixed reviews on Steam have turned decidedly negative as gamers protest over this deliberate cash grab. Dirk Hassinger, who goes by the alias Rador on Steam, went so far as to lay out a pros and cons list in what was such sideways thinking that it left me staring at my monitor like a deer in headlights for a few minutes. His reasoning behind the implementation of microtransactions was a surprisingly open and public form of greed that seemed almost innocent in its simplicity. Indeed, the reasoning behind disabling of the console commands was mixed in with some reasons that were purely fluff and filler, but it was plainly clear that they were disabled to prevent people from making use of the console commands instead of paying money for the same thing. That leads us back to the point that all these microtransactions are paid cheats. This, of course, harkens back to an argument between gamers and games publishers that started back in 2013 with the announcement that Dead Space 3 would have microtransactions in place of cheat codes. The argument supporting microtransactions in recent years has always been surrounding two major points. First, the fabricated narrative that microtransactions do not change how the game is played, and they are, quote, optional, and you are still able to play and beat the game without them. This argument, unfortunately, only serves to underscore how short-term the memory of the games industry is in some instances. Now, while new games very much are designed with microtransactions in mind, despite what the AAA industry's public statements are to the contrary, the same could not be said of older games, like situations we are facing with Two Worlds 2. And this is very much why we're seeing this conversion of cheat codes into monetized items. That said, after a very long and protracted discussion with Steam users, Dirk Hassinger has agreed to re-enable the console commands, which will happen either today or on Monday per a posting on the Steam forums from him. A re-enabling console commands will allow users access to their cheat commands again, and it will allow people to bypass the use of the microtransaction system if they so choose. And my personal thoughts on this are very much one of unsurprised disgust. This is nothing more than a blatant cash grab by the developers of a 7-year-old game that have a demonstrable history of money mismanagement and financial troubles. Indeed, it might very well be a continuation of those financial difficulties that have prompted this move. Whether that is actually the case or not, I suppose only time will tell. Regardless, this decision to include microtransactions should never have taken place, and it will cost the developers a great deal of whatever respect they had left within the industry. And to my mind, they have already had their chance to make money on the game, and they should have sought other avenues of revenue than attempting to fleece their own customer base. But what do you think? Am I mistaken, or do you think I'm fairly accurate in my estimation of the situation? Let me know down in the comments. Also, please do like and share. I feel that players of Two Worlds 2 very much deserve to know what has been happening here. And if you're new to the channel, and if you feel I've all earned it, then don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date on PC gaming news and reviews. And if you feel like supporting my channel even further, links to my Patreon, Steam Curator page, and social medias are in the description below. Please feel free to avail yourself of them if you would like. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and I'll see you next time.